Hello everybody! Welcome back to another episode of WallE Talks. Today we have a very Shrektacular episode in store for you today. And if that little pun right there doesn't really get the gears turning in your head, this is a video about Shrek, and not just any old Shrek video. It is a tier list of all the different Shrek movies, including Puss in Boots 2: The Last Wish, without spoilers by the way. Every film being talked about will not have spoilers, so anyone who hasn't seen them can go watch them after this video. And without further ado, I feel like we should get into this, so buckle up, grab your onions, and let's make our way into the swamp with a very Shrektacular tier list video. Let's get into it. Starting from the bottom of the list, we have the absolute worst Shrek film, Shrek the Third. This film is an absolute insult to the rest of the franchise. And, I would go on a long rant on why this film is the definitive worst Shrek film, but there is only one problem. This film has been talked about to death. There have been so many videos regarding this movie and why it sucks. So I'm just going to summarize everything right now. The film overall lacks the charm of the previous two Shrek films. It's just not funny. The new characters such as Arthur and Merlin, I just don't care about them. And lastly, the music choices for this film are not great. And with that, I'm going to be putting this film in the bottom tier, the Shadow Realm. Moving on, the next film is the original Puss in Boots from 2011. Again, the original, not the sequel we all adore. Now, I actually like this movie. I love the choreography during the action scenes. I think that some of the jokes are pretty funny. And I love the fact that it's an origin story about Puss in Boots, and we get to find out about some new characters from his past, like Humpty and Kitty Softpaws. However, my only issue with this movie is that it's the most forgettable out of all the Shrek movies. We tend to forget that this one even exists because of the impact it left. I'm not saying that the movie was poorly received. It was received quite positively. The thing is that it's not on the levels of the first two Shrek films, and especially after the release of Shrek the Third, people sort of forgot about this movie. I like this movie, so I will be giving it a good tier on this list. Moving on. Next up is Shrek Forever After. Now, this is a Shrek movie. I love this movie. From here on out, all these movies are movies that I really, really love. Wanting to be an ogre again, Shrek is tricked into signing a contract that leads to a universe where he never existed, leading to an alternate far, far away that's under the rule of Rumpelstiltskin. I love how this film takes itself a lot more seriously, especially after the disaster of Shrek the Third. I think the alternative version of Fiona in this film is really cool, and this is probably the film where she's done the most since the original Shrek. I'm not saying she's a useless character, but this feels like a movie where she does so much to help progress the plot, especially with the ogre rebellion and all that. Also, Rumpelstiltskin is a hilarious villain, and you just gotta love him. He's a terrible, terrible person, but he's just so funny, and you just gotta love this guy. Solid Shrek film. I'm putting this in the great tier. Moving on. Next up is the original Shrek from 2001. Now this is another film that is certainly amazing. Shrek, Donkey, Fiona, they're all such likable characters with something called character flaws. Take note, Hollywood. These are real characters with actual flaws. Not only that, we have Markiplier, who is somehow in this movie. This is totally Markiplier, right guys? This film has some of the best jokes throughout the entire franchise. with literal laugh out loud moments. The soundtrack, though. Don't get me started on the soundtrack, especially with All Star at the beginning. The intro to Shrek has been memed so much. I love it. This is another film that is worthy of the great tier on this tier list. Moving on to the top 2. Next up, the first film in the God tier category is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Now, I'm not really going to talk about this movie all that much, even though it's been like 3 months since it came out. I just want to stay safe in case there are people who still haven't seen this movie, which, if you haven't, go watch it. I love the animation. I love the choreography. I love the character of Death. He is so cool. And also, Jack Horner's pretty funny as well. I'm not going to talk too much about this film because, again, I don't know if everybody has seen it. And again, this is a film worthy of the God tier category. Moving on to our last film, and I think you know what it is. It's quite obvious. The best Shrek film is easily Shrek 2. This film is an all-time classic. The film expands the world of Shrek, adding stuff that is new and interesting, like the Kingdom of Far, Far Away, Fiona's parents, and top-tier villain, Fairy Godmother. And do I even need to talk about the climax, the I Need a Hero scene? That scene is an all-time classic, not in just animation, but in film in general. That is how good that scene is. Okay, so unfortunately the tier list I was using on a tier maker, it didn't have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish on there, so I'm just gonna put it right there. See, now the list is complete. And with that, it is time to wrap up this episode of WallE Talks. Thank you so much for watching. This is one of the longer episodes this year, but I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys really soon, sometime next week. So, stay awesome, my WallE bots.